Ladies and gentlemen, it is November 5th. It is barely past Halloween. It is still far from Christmas. So why do I see in my mall a full-on Meet Santa Claus display with a full Christmas tree up? This is completely unacceptable. And speaking of unacceptable, Bugonia. Oh, no, this movie is mostly boring if you are like me and fairly numb to like amateur attempts at psychological torture and some gore. It's not that gory, but there's some. So if you're not going to get any shock value out of it, which it isn't super shocking, to be honest with you, you're going to get nothing. At least that would be my guess. I don't know. Maybe the other people in my theaters. It was a strangely packed theater for my experience tonight. Usually, I have only a couple of people in the theater. That might be because I usually go to see movies late, long after they've been released for some time. And on a weekday, too. But this was a weekday as well. Not sure why. Anyway, don't know whether they enjoyed it or not. I didn't. I heard the most reactions that I heard out of them was when there was something particularly like messed up happening. And I don't know, maybe I'm just super jaded, but I'm like, boring. If it's not it's kind of like anything, by which I mean like special effects or cool action scenes and stuff. If it does not exist in a good context, a well-written context, if it is not in the context of a well-written story, there we go, that's how we say it, I don't care. I'm not impressed by like crazy visuals. Like if someone says to me like, oh yeah, the story wasn't that good, but man, the effects, you don't hear that much anymore, but once upon a time you did, I would say, that sure sounds like a movie I will skip. Yeah, okay, so if you haven't heard of our feature tonight, Bugonia. If you've seen the trailer, congrats, you saw the best parts, as is too often the case. It looks more interesting than it is, but the basic premise is crazy dude and his possibly mentally challenged cousin that he has dragged for the ride kidnap a female CEO because they're convinced she's an alien helping to poison the planet. And so she's locked up in the basement. Begin movie. And that's an interesting enough premise. It should be like, I'm here for the weird psychological games and stuff. The problem is, I always hesitate to say that you can't do a given premise, because with a good enough writer, you can usually do most premises. Most premises are not dead on arrival. It's very rare to come across any premise that is truly dead on arrival. And I have to believe that this one is workable as well. But, oh boy, does this movie convince me that it's not, because too many of the conversations start to devolve very quickly into, you're an alien. I know you're an alien. I'm not an alien. I'm a human being. Let's talk about this. No, you're an alien. Admit that you're an alien. No, I'm a human being. Let's talk about this. And then the slight variation on that, which is, okay, you got me. I'm an alien. Oh, really? You're an alien? Then prove it. Oh, shit. I don't actually understand any of his crazy conspiracy theory, so I can't plausibly, react to this. And so he's not convinced. And he's like, you're just stringing me along. No, I'm saying what you want. I'll do whatever you want. Just let me go. Rinse and repeat about like 3.5 times throughout the movie. And the next problem with this movie and so many movies is, God, pacing. What has happened to the art of pacing? I just last week went and saw the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, and God, what a good script. Just an excellent script, and the pacing is actually fantastic. You would like, if you put a gun to my head and said, cut a line of dialogue from that film, I would start sweating, because so much of it is just that good. And there is not a lot of fat on that. Like, every scene is doing several things at once, which is the sign of a well-written film. Again, I've said it many times about Back to the Future, because it genuinely is that good. And I really need to get off my butt and do like a breakdown to demonstrate exactly so many setups and payoffs. But anyway, pacing. I'm trying to say pacing. There is like no fat on that movie compared to Bugonia, which it's like, it's not the worst paced movie I've seen, but when you've already got scenes that feel repetitive, and I did not need to see every action that the two crazy people or the one crazy person and his cousin were taking ahead of time to do this. And in fact, I think it would be better for the film if we cut some of this out. Like, for example, early on, we see the main crazy guy convince his cousin to go through with chemical castration so that their minds can be clear and not influenced by the alien mental whatever thing. And there's a later scene in the movie after they've captured the CEO and they're talking to her where she's like, what is this about? Is this a money thing? They've already given her the alien speech, but like she's just trying to cut past that to like whatever psychological underpinnings are causing them to do this. Where she's like, is this a money thing, a power thing, a sex thing? And then they say, and we knew you would try that. That's why we chemically castrated ourselves. They don't say it that flippantly, but that would be a much more impactful scene if we didn't see them going through this. And this is what it's a fine scene, like when you actually see the one crazy guy convince his cousin to go through with this. It is, but there's a few scenes kind of like that. And honestly, there's not enough going on in each of these scenes to be worth it. Or I can think of another scene off the top of my head where he's already captured the CEO and he returns to work at one point and he goes into the lunchroom and they're playing the story about the CEO's disappearance on the TV, and a coworker comes up to him and he says like, hey, I brought some honey, because he's obsessed with bees, don't worry about it. I brought some honey for your toast. This scene means nothing. It has nothing. The best you could say for it is that the TV report says like, oh, they don't seem to have any leads, which by the way, if the police had leads and stuff, they wouldn't be putting it on the news. And as a crazy conspiracy theorist, he would know that and he wouldn't believe what the news is telling him anyway. So literally a pointless scene. Literally get rid of it. Every single writer and director that is working today needs to have a metaphorical gun put to their heads by a producer who says, cut 15 minutes. I don't care. Cut 15 minutes, because you all suck at pacing. It's so bad. It's crazy because like I'm thinking of, I had Aliens on the brain the other day, the plural, the sequel to Alien. And they did that to James Cameron to cut stuff. And it's sad on that one because they cut the auto turret sequence, which is fantastic. And they cut a lot of the stuff about Ripley being a mother, which really does gut that film. But on the other hand, they also cut the sequence where the colonists first, not Ripley, Newt's parents first discover the crashed spaceship. And you know what? The film is better without that scene, because it is stuff that you don't need to show for the audience. So while, yes, there is a lot of times where cutting stuff can be bad, there is also, even in the best films, you can find some things, or at least the rough drafts of the best films, you can find things where it's like, hey, we should cut it. And guess what? This is not even close to one of the best films. From my perspective, the most interesting part of this film would have been the clash of personalities and not clash of personalities, but like how each person would try and, well, specifically how the CEO would try and work her way out of this in a position of no power. And for a little bit, it is interesting with that, where she has an initial speech when she first wakes up in the basement, and she has a very convincing spiel about how the police will be closing in and she's a very valuable person and she's willing to make an arrangement so that this works out well for everyone, or at least doesn't get any worse. And she delivers it very well. It's very well written. And that was the highlight. And it's mostly in the trailer. Well, not mostly. There's some of it that's in the trailer. It's better complete as it is in the movie, but it's not worth the price of admission. There's just not enough of that, because the thing is, she doesn't have enough leverage at any point in the movie to make things, and that could be interesting with a different writing approach, but as I've already said, it turns into, I'm not an alien. Yes, you're an alien. Okay, I'm an alien. Prove that you're an alien. Oh shit, I can't prove that I'm an alien, but please be nice anyways? No, you're an alien. The psychotic character who's having a break with reality is not particularly interesting. It gets boring really fast. We don't actually... He kind of elaborates on like what his conspiracy theory is, so it's not like we get a great picture of what it is, but it's really... Can I say conspiracy slop? Does that make sense? I'm going to call it conspiracy slop. I feel like that's the best description of his conspiracy theory, because they really don't go into a lot of detail aside that, like, oh, there are aliens that are infecting Earth, and like, he wouldn't say it in these words, but killing its soul is the idea. It's like, that's why the modern world sucks. It's because the aliens are doing it, and you're putting the chemicals in the air, man, and you're killing the bees. You're killing the bees, man. That's the what do they call it? Like, it's like CCD or something like that. Colony something death. He's like, oh, the bees are dying, and that's your doing because of the pesticides and whatnot, or at least we thought that's the pesticides, but it's not the pesticides, it's whatever that you're doing to the planet. But it never goes into, like, a lot of detail, aside from he thinks that they're aliens from the Andromeda Galaxy, and that she represents an emperor who's responsible for all of this or something, and they're trying to... I'm probably forgetting. They said either kill or neuter or enslave humanity. Honestly, I think they did say, but it's boring. I forget. And then they spend more time kind of dealing with this guy's backstory, and it's like boring, predictable. It's, guess what? The CEO is a CEO of like a pharmaceutical company, or like a biochemical company of some sort. And so his mother, the crazy guy's mother, was like an addict, and she was enrolled in a drug trial that was supposed to help with her addiction, and it put her into a coma instead. And so they, even though he was compensated by the company, because the lady CEO is kind of characterized as being, you know, a slick businesswoman who's not a nice person either. So it's like, even though she's like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, and of course we realize this is not enough, but here's some compensation for what happened to your mother. We'll cover all of her medical costs and whatnot. But it's well written in the sense that you're like, this is technically a nice thing that you are doing, but I kind of hate you. So that some of the dialogue is well written in that regard, but there's not enough dramatic substance behind it to care. Again, because like the plot beats in which they exist are not interesting enough for the dialogue to carry it alone. But anyway, so the point is that, one of the reasons that he spiraled into this is because his mother was in a coma and he never knew his father. And so he actually blames her, for the CEO, for what happens. And that's why he's messed up. And that's why he went down the rabbit hole. Except also, it turns out that the chubby sheriff that was in there, in kind of a late... It's not a twist, really, because it's just a late reveal in the movie. They're like, guess what? He was his babysitter and he molested him too. And it's like, oh, wow, thank you for that random fucking addition. And it's like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have characterized the conspiracy theorist as having some deeper psychological trauma that makes him go down this rabbit hole. Like, that's fine. Like, it's not shocking, but it's also boring. I don't know how better to put it. It's like, traumatized guy goes down conspiracy rabbit hole and does stupid conspiracy shit. I'm sorry, that's not terribly interesting. It's like, yeah, that is sure how things work. Are you going to do something with that? That is the status quo. Maybe that's a little too dramatic, but you still have to do something. And they write the character as if like learning about his backstory somehow is like intriguing or anything. Or like when the CEO is like actually talking about like how I know you have trauma and stuff like that. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not impressed with that as a move in this, what should be a chess game, you know? So it's very dull. It is very dull to go back and forth. There's no interesting reveals. Despite the fact that she's also kind of a stereotype in that, again, stuck up, slick CEO, who's like probably not actually a very nice person, and superficial. She comes across as a little bit more interesting just because she's in a more interesting situation. And I guess that's actually probably the perfect example of what I mean by you have to do something interesting with the character. It's like you can take someone who sounds like a two-dimensional character, but put them in an interesting situation, and suddenly it's fascinating. And I guess that's exactly what happened with her, because it's not like I have a lot of in-depth things to say about her. It's just an interesting situation for her to be in, or at least it would have been, except for that immediately it feels like the writer didn't have any extra direction to go with. Again, they didn't have any leverage. So this might be shorter than one of my other rambles, but really, when something's boring, there's a lot less to say about it. And so much of the movie, it takes so long to get to the actual kidnapping. Again, should have fast forwarded through like a lot of that. I didn't need to see every single, like there's a lot of things with the CEO doing like very corporate talking points, and then the mask breaks and she's actually kind of a dick. And it's like they do that like twice, one with like recording a not an ad, but like a video, some sort of video, a training video for like their internal diversity program. And then there's another part where she's talking to her secretary or assistant, where she's like, we want to change the culture so that no one anymore has to stay beyond 5:30, unless they have work to do. Obviously we want to get work done, and we want to get those quotas. But, if they can be done by 5:30. And it's like both of those make the same point in terms of characterization, which is that superficially she's saying the right corporate things, but underneath she is only concerned about herself, or like she doesn't actually care about these things, and she only cares about the money and the productivity. So cut one of them. They're not one of these. They're both doing the same thing. They're not adding anything, and you're wasting my time before the actual premise of the movie happens. Remember how this is supposed to be about a kidnapping? Let's cut ahead to the kidnapping a little bit quicker, people, unless you're going to do some actual setup in a useful way. Tell me something different that will be relevant later on, or cut to the chase. Same thing with the kidnapper side of things. There's a lot of them preparing to do the thing, and it is not particularly interesting or anything. I'm just remembering now that like they go shopping to get a bunch of ointment because they always have to rub her. Part of their weird conspiracy theory is that they communicate through their hair, and then they can also like dampen their senses by keeping them covered in some sort of like lotion or ointment or something. So there's a scene early on where like the one guy's like, "Oh, get the whole shelf, get all of that ointment there. We're going to buy all of it." And it's like, we see this come up several times later on while you're slathering her with the ointment. Like, you don't need to show me this. You're just wasting time. So that's why I don't have a lot to say about it up until the really stupid thing happens, because it's so very boring. So eventually the way that it resolves, a couple of things happens. Yeah, I don't really need to talk about most of them. She winds up trying to convince Dawn, who is the cousin, possibly mentally challenged, to like, she'll help him escape because he wants to go to space. He was kind of disappointed earlier in the movie, in a rare example of good setup that was worthwhile. When his cousin, when the main crazy guy is like, we're gonna go up to the spaceship. I've got a contingency plan for what's gonna happen, or we're gonna negotiate with them, and then we're gonna come back to Earth. And Don's like, we're not gonna go to space. I wanted to go to space. And the other guy's like, no, we're gonna make Earth better. So we're gonna come back here to the better Earth. Anyway, fast forward towards the end of the movie, and the CEO lady's like trying to talk to Dawn because Dawn is a little bit more freaked out by the extremes his cousin has been going to, and so the CEO's all like, "Hey, you don't want to do this. You're a good guy. You were the hero in this situation." And he's responds like, "If you are an alien, will you take me up into your ship?" Because he wants to go to space, you see. And she winds up like caving and saying like, yes, I am an alien. I'll do whatever you want. And he's like, okay, I'm ready. At which point I'm immediately like, he's going to shoot himself. And then he shoots himself. Because, that's how you go to space. I've heard of Heaven's Gate before. Anyway, so he's out of the picture because that happened. After the crazy guy comes back and sees that Dawn has committed suicide, and he's gonna kill her because he thinks that she has messed with his mind and forced him to do this. She tells him, like, I have a cure for your mother, actually, in my car. You don't want to kill me because I've got a cure for your mother, and I'll give it to you. She was actually an experiment by we aliens, and we can end it. There's a cure for it. If the experiment goes successfully, she lives. If it fails, she dies, but you can end the experiment. All you have to do is go in my car and get some antifreeze. You see, the antifreeze isn't actually antifreeze. I just call it that, so it's inconspicuous. But you take that and you give it to her, and she'll wake up. And the guy buys this. Not entirely sure why at this point, except maybe desperation. Honestly, I was kind of checked out of the movie by this point a little bit, because she's tried kind of the I'm an alien line of bullshit a few times now. So I think it was because it was an emotional moment more than anything that he bought it, and I think I'm just forgetting some of the details too. But anyway, not the point. Point is, he buys it. He goes to do this. While he is gone, she gets the keys off of Dawn's corpse, and so she can unlock herself. And then she goes to look in a secret room. And I was like, this is another point in the theater where I'm like, I was already kind of checked out. And this is the point where I'm like, you're going to die and you deserve it, because you're not taking the time to just leave the house. You have free reign. You have a limited amount of time before he comes back. But no, you check the secret room. And in the secret room, there's a bunch of body parts. And guess what? He's done this before, which again, wasn't much of a surprise because it was telegraphed pretty obviously several times before. Like he had said things like, I'm not going to have one of them do this again, or something like that. I don't remember the exact line, but it was something like with again in the line. And in fact, even Dawn like picked up on it and said again. And then they just didn't follow up on it. But it was like, oh, okay, so he's kidnapped people before. Got it. Because he thinks that they're Andromedons too. Right. So not subtle, not interesting. But so she's reading his manifesto. Meanwhile, he injects antifreeze into his mom and she dies. He comes back and she's still there. She's still there. And she's still there. And she gives him this big old lecture about how he's gotten things so wrong before that actually they're here to help Earth because the planet used to be... I think I might be able to do this. Hang on. Let me see if I can remember her spiel. Once upon a time, planet Earth was like a paradise ruled by sapient dinosaurs. And then the Andromedons came to visit and were like, oh, this is such a great planet. But they accidentally introduced a virus that killed off all of the dinosaurs. And the Andromedons felt so bad about that they needed to add life back to the planet. So they created life in their image. And that's why Andromedons look so human, you see, because humans are an offshoot of Andromedons, except kind of not really, because they established Atlantis here. Atlantis is where all the Andromedons went, but some of these humans that are offshoots of Andromedons, got jealous and genetically engineered themselves to be even better than the Andromedons, but it also increased their aggression, which eventually led to thermonuclear war, which destroyed everyone, including the enhanced humans and the Andromedon offshoots, except for a few Andromedon offshoots who survived in an arc for a century. They got out, they had descendants, but then they died too, and then they reverse evolved into, their offshoots devolved into apes, I think, except then the apes re-evolved into humans, and that's where we are now. Okay? Keep that in mind. Keep that backstory in mind. This is more important than you might think. Anyway, so she's telling him how humans actually suck, and the Andromedon, is here to save them. And I'm thinking, like, why are you doing this stupid fucking ploy? But she is. And eventually she gets him to take her into her office to meet, because she's gonna bring him to the Andromedons, you see, the Emperor. She's gonna bring him to the Emperor. So she has to go to the office to do that. So she and him go to the office. They get into her office, and she convinces him that her closet is a teleporter, and that the calculator that she's going to use is how she communicates with the ship. And she's like, I know, I needed to make it look inconspicuous. I know it looks silly. And she's like, I gotta do like this 58-digit code to do there, and stop talking. I really need to concentrate. And she has to tell him to stop talking several times because it's really hard for her to remember. And she does not enter 58 digits, by the way. But she goes through this process, gets him to walk in there first. Just before he does, he revealed, as hinted at earlier in the movie when he was talking to Dawn before they kidnapped him, like he had an alternate plan. If negotiations didn't work, he was prepared for every eventuality. He's got a suicide vest on. That's what he's got. So he reveals this to her. I don't remember why. It's not as stupid as it sounds. Believe me, I'm going to talk about why this movie is stupid. And that's not actually one of the reasons. But so he gets into the closet, and she had told him, like, oh, I'll say 3, 2, 1, and then you'll teleport. So she's like hobbling away because her leg got broken earlier, or like her knee got dislocated before, and she had to pop it back into place, kind of. And so she's hobbling away, and she's going 3, 2, 1, and then he just blows himself up, which should really, his body gets disintegrated to the point where his head comes flying out and headbutts her. That closet should be eviscerated if that bomb has that much power. Asterisk. So that's dumb, but it's over. She's being rushed there, to which we begin the actual stupid. And I want to say right now that if you're listening to this, you're probably, because it's a summary, you're probably going to go, oh, that's actually awesome. That sounds hilarious. I want to see this movie now. Stop. Shame on you. It sounds funny and cool when I say it in a summary, and maybe it would be if I was eating cheap pizza and drinking while I was watching this with friends in college, but I'm not. I had to watch this in theaters, and it's lame when that experience. Maybe it would be funny if I was able to make fun of the movie the whole time, but no. So here's the twist. She is an alien. Oh, didn't see that coming. The conspiracy theorist was kind of right the whole time. And so it's implied that the backstory that she gave is actually the truth, which is why I said, remember that detail. And it's also why I say asterisk to the closet, because it is a teleporter. Spoilers. And the calculator is a little communications device. So one asks, why did it take her so long to remember the code and whatnot? Whatever. Anyway, and so maybe if it's an alien teleporter, maybe that's why it didn't blow up in the whole blast. Fine, whatever. It's made out of adamantium or whatever. Andromedantium. There you go. Anyway, she transports back up to her spaceship in their stupid, goofy alien costumes with their stupid alien language. And they say, yeah, the experiment to see if humanity would get better, which was another part of the backstory that she told him. It seems to have failed. So fuck it. Let's kill him. And so they go over. By the way, the Earth is flat in this movie. They go over to a model of the flat Earth with the dome and everything. And she pokes the dome of the flat Earth, and it pops like a bubble. And then we get an excruciatingly long, like 4-minute sequence of just panning over dead bodies on Earth. Like everyone just apparently collapsed and died. And I don't know what I'm supposed to make of this, because animals are seen alive and doing well. It's just humans who have died. There is air still there. So it's not like I popped the bubble and all the air escaped like it's Spaceballs. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take away from that. I mean, they established the Earth is flat, so there isn't any science happening anyway in this movie, so who cares? But this is stupid, okay? This is just dumb. You cannot expect me to have sat through what should be a psychological thriller / drama that I'm supposed to take seriously this entire time and then give me a lol, it was aliens ending. I'm sorry, this isn't a Smiling Friends joke. They can do it because it's an absurdist comedy with a little beat at the end that's funny. You cannot convince me that, hey, in this world with people that I am supposed to take seriously on this planet Earth, no one was able to figure out that the Earth was flat. We know it's not. There's backyard experiments that you can do for this. We have people in Antarctica who have seen the 24-hour sun. I don't even know how sunlight is supposed to work on the flat Earth. Still need someone to explain that to me. Please don't. I don't care. If you're stupid if you believe this. It's not worth my breath. And also the idea of like a global conspiracy, people would figure this out. I'm sorry. Conspiracies are very difficult to hide, and you cannot convince me that the one person who figured it out was a crazed maniac. I guess if I'm expected to believe that literally 100% of like the US government is compromised, then I can't complain that like the CIA didn't like extract her to a black site. But fuck you. The CIA, some random group of the CIA or something would have figured this out and gone rogue and taken action on this before a dude who lives out in the middle of nowhere who packages boxes for a living. You can't convince me that that is the most reasonable and realistic outcome of this universe. I can't believe I have to say this about this. This is bad world building, is what I'm saying. It's bad world building. It always comes back to bad world building. This is stupid, but it's for the gag at the end. Like, oh, isn't this clever? Like, oh, the crazy man was actually right. Maybe sanity is actually a different form of being crazy. We don't realize how crazy the real world actually is. No, you're just dumb, okay? I'm sorry. This is not clever. This is not intellectual. If you wanted to do the twist that we're supposed to think that he's a crazy person, but that she's actually an alien, then you have to at least show us how he came to these conclusions so that it can actually seem semi-plausible. Like, actually make us as the audience start to question reality. Like, no, he's a crazy guy that just kidnapped this woman. He can't possibly be right. But what he's saying, that's weird. It's weird that almost works, but it couldn't be. But it couldn't be. Like, that's how good twists tend to work. It's not a good twist is something that you could theoretically see ahead of time and most importantly, makes sense in retrospect, but that you didn't. Again, for as much as we make joke about the what a twist Shyamalan thing, The Sixth Sense is actually a brilliant example of a twist done right. It's very, very well executed because, and I can say this because I had it spoiled for me and I still watched the movie and thought it was great. Whereas with this one, if I watched it again, I think I'm going to have a lot of questions about why she didn't do a bunch of different things here. Like, okay, actual sanity check here. Why doesn't she? His goal, by the way, he does kidnap her, but his demands originally are for her to carry a message to her people. And her people don't actually have an evil plan to kill humanity, at least not outright. That's like their backup plan if the experiment fails. So why doesn't she just say at this point, like, okay, dude, you've just caused my disappearance, which means there's going to be more eyes on me, which is going to risk my cover here on Earth. And you only have half the explanation here. So here's the deal. We're going to go up. We'll talk to the aliens. You have to release me right now and don't do anything crazy. And we'll arrange this because, like, you're causing a bigger congratulations, you figured out part of it, but you're causing an intergalactic incident. They like zap her at one point. Like they put her through like electrical torture. And because I don't know what different voltages would do to the human body, this might actually have supposed to have been something that clues us in early, because he cranks up the voltage like really high, and that somehow makes him change his mind and think, oh, I thought you were admin, but actually you're part of the royal family. And it turns out she's the emperor in the end. So it's like, maybe if I knew more about what voltages would do to the human body, I'd watch that scene and be like, oh, that's more voltage than the human body could withstand. Oh, this is actually clever foreshadowing. But again, I don't think it works with the rest of it. Also, it was boring. Did I mention it was boring? Oh my God, it was boring. I had to wait through so much to get to the alien twist. And then I have to sit through 4 minutes of dead bodies. This is not artsy. This is not artistically impressive. This is just like, haha, look, there's dead naked people that died while having sex. Isn't that funny? No, you're boring. You have the sense of humor of a middle schooler. This is not interesting or intriguing whatsoever. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about how they died. You're not making any sort of statement. Like, my best guess at whatever artistic statement they're trying to make is like, look how paranoid humans have become and what they'll do to other humans. And therefore, the human species, it's like, man, what is even the point anymore? If we can do this to each other, then maybe we don't deserve to exist on this planet. Except he was right, bro. Like, you can't. I don't know that's if that is an angle that this movie is going for, but if it is, like, You can't make a movie where the crazy guy is right and then go, oh man, see how crazy modern society is? Like, no, he's not crazy if he's right. I mean, that's technically not true, but we don't see how he came to the conclusion. So again, maybe an interesting angle would be he is crazy and his methods are wrong, but he accidentally came to the right conclusion, which is kind of hard to swallow, but at least that would be interesting, where it's like, you got the work wrong, but the answer is correct. But we don't see his work, so we don't know, which again is why I'm not impressed by like the aliens were real the whole time. It's like, you gave me every reason to think that he's actually a crazy guy, including a psychological backstory as to why he's a crazy guy, and then just said JK. What, you want me to be impressed by that? I can do that too. I can stick JK onto the end of any movie or book. Are you going to applaud for me for doing that? Pathetic, boring, lame, stupid. There's one other point that I think I was going to make somewhere along here about how lame and terrible the movie is, but I guess I'll just say this about the backstory. Like, again, you know, science is real. Like, you can't, it's just stupid to say like, oh, but in this world, this is how it worked. And the one that always gets me is Atlantis. Atlantis is like, unless it's Atlantis, the Lost Empire, the Disney film that is underrated, that's great. But any like sort of adult entertainment that wants me to seriously treat Atlantis as anything more than a literal political allegory is ridiculous, because that is what, as I understand it, as has been told to me, Atlantis was literally a political allegory that Plato wrote. Like, it was literally, the purpose of Atlantis was for him to say, like, here's what a shitty civilization would look. It sure would be stupid if we made our civilization like that. In fact, that civilization's so dumb that the gods punished it. Unlike my personal perfect society. Have you read my book, The Republic? I've got some ideas about society. So it's like, every time you here's what I want the general population to do. Every time you hear the word Atlantis uttered as if it's a real place, I want you to mentally search and replace that for Democratopolis, okay? Imagine the fable of Democratopolis. It is the mythical city in which the Democrats controlled everything and immediately devolved into godless communism, and soon people were eating each other, and they were so bad at everything that the very foundations of the city collapsed and it fell into the center of the world. Well, if in 1,000 years some future archaeologist was going around looking for Democratopolis, you would think that's the stupidest thing ever. That's how you should treat Atlantis, okay? So when this movie retroactively is like, the story she told him is actually true, Atlantis is real in this universe, it's like, you're dumb. You're dumb. It's not funny. I'm not impressed. This is lame. Anyway, like I said, if I was a few beers deep, laughing at this, having made fun of the movie the whole way through in college. I might be roaring uproariously. Roaring uproariously. That's a very poor turn of phrase. But I might be laughing uproariously with my friends at that twist. But it was painful having to go through this in theaters. So, Bugonia, it sucks. The end.